Good evening, everyone. Hello. Can we make our way to some seats and get our annual general meeting underway? I have to say it is really gratifying to see so many people here, and really so many people engaged so vigorously and fully over the last several weeks. Oh, okay. So if I want to stand over there, okay, cool. All right. So we had sort of an agenda, and of course, as usual, I want to throw a monkey wrench in the agenda. We're gonna flip the order around. So we're gonna have the elections results first, and then we'll go to the financials, and then I will close out the meeting with a few words. So with that, I will hand it over to Kenny.
All right, well, thanks, Greg, and welcome everyone to, what Greg said, our second annual RChain members meeting. And so I am here to present the election results. I do have one thing to show for you guys, but I don't know who's going to run that machine while I do it. Maybe I will nominate whoever's standing. Patrick. Let's see, is Ashley here too? She's the one that had that, should be queued up. Well, let's just go take a look and see what we have. Yeah. It says the treasury update on it. Treasury, yep, that's not the one I want. Yeah, this will be for her presentation though. This is not my presentation. Like Greg said, we threw things up a little bit, so it's... As soon as we get it, then I can...
Oh, okay. You're asking me to click the slides?
Yeah, or at least scroll up and down. I think it's one page, but it might be kind of scroll. Yeah, in my presentation? Yeah. I'll just bring it up here too. Sorry. Okay, getting closer. But here are a couple other statistics. So we had 328 total votes cast over the 48 hours of open voting. And then we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 initiatives or items of business and 4 open board positions. You know, anytime anybody asks me that, I always come up with one, and I'm like, no, don't say that out loud. Don't say that out loud. Okay, here we go. Very small font. Okay. So from the results from the, I'll read the results from the results of the directors. So within the number one vote getter was Christoph, followed by Kevin Goldstein, then Meta, and then after that, Barry. So those were the first top four vote getters. Unfortunately, Christoph did resign, or he was no longer able to assume the position, assume that board position. So we don't know what that means just yet, but we'll let you know. So right now we have our board members that we know for sure are Barry, Kevin, and Meta. Okay. Well, getting into the items of business. I'll just go ahead and read off the, oh yeah, here we go. Okay, so the first item was the financial transparency. This would be a requirement to produce financial reports on a quarterly basis. This item passed with over 90% approval. Okay, the second item was a operations roadmap, which would be to give some additional clarity to where the co-op is headed, and this item also passed with over 90% in favor. The third item was a ballot for creating a conflict of interest policy. So this would define when and under what circumstances there might be conflicts of interest within the co-op. This also passed with over a 90% margin. Okay, then number 4, a membership participation in governance. This item here would require the co-op to define what an important decision is and then have a request for comment period before any important decisions can be made. Also passing with more than 90%. So the item of business 5, the RChain monetary policy. This is one that had 2 items, an A and a B, or neither. And this was the same instant runoff as we had for the board nominees, and the winner at 65% of the vote was item A. So right there where you see, these will be the numbers that the co-op will work with moving forward with regards to ROC and REV. Okay, so there was also an amendment, to define an RChain improvement process. So this would be, and there's some examples on the ballot that Meta had started for an improvement process. This also passed with a 90% margin. And the last item was a proposed amendment to the bylaws requiring a supermajority, and that also passed. So all items passed. The item of business 5, item A, was the item that will be enacted. And we currently know for sure 3 board members, and we'll have to come back to everyone to see what is the final result of the resignation and the last board member that we had in that last open seat. Is there any questions about the results of the election before we move into a financial presentation? Okay, pretty straightforward. Okay, and again, these items were logged on a private instance of Ethereum, and they will be ported over to RChain at mainnet as well. so we can continue to have these election results into the future. Okay, so with that, I'd like to introduce Kate I'm going to say it right, Kate. Gonzalez. Kate Gonzalez, our Chief Financial Officer.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I have some financial data to share with you, and I think I'll try to run the PowerPoint. Great. Yeah, that's fine.
Or would you rather it not be?
Yeah, just on the regular mode. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. How does it get to, there's an Excel spreadsheet.
Where?
It's if you click on the hyperlink.
Balance sheet?
Yeah.
Open? So we should just do it. Sure.
Where does it go? That's fine. Oh, there. Oh, perfect. I'll just, awesome. Yeah, that's great. That would make it big. That might make it bigger. Awesome. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it.
I'd rather make it even bigger if you want. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So maybe just.
Okay, thank you. We'll go over the US dollars and liquid cryptocurrency assets. Cash in a checking account is about 108,000. In savings, it's about 2 million. We have a brokerage or a Bittrex wallet with about 397,000. And then we go into our liquid cryptocurrency holdings. We have a combination of Bitcoin, Ethereum, some Lumen, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Gold, and AMPS with an estimated value. Combined, our total assets in liquid cryptocurrency in US dollars is about 3,956,000. This is as of about 9:30 a.m. this morning. And please, if we could hold questions to the end of my presentation, that would be fabulous. Another asset we have is real estate property located in Seattle. The estimated value is about 1.5 million based on a purchase price in April. Now I'm going to talk about the immediate 1-month current liabilities. So our annual meeting is about $12,000. We have a website design and content for about $120,000, and validator expenses for $225,000. Combined, that's $357,000. Moving on to short-term current liabilities, contractual, and other obligations. The Immersion First Amendment NRE agreement is about $5.6 million. Reflective Ventures, a management fee and strategic partnership, is $2.2 million. Pyrofex software development is $3.6. Pyrofex event, or rather conference support, is $300,000. Real estate taxes are estimated to be about $15,000. Income taxes payable is an estimate of $3.5 million due in April. Founders Rock taxes payable is about $150,000. There's a Pythia legal expense for $200,000, a HackerOne contract $44,000, and videography contract for $46,000. So combined, this is about $15,680,000 in liquid and US dollar liabilities. At the bottom here, I have our potential obligations, items that we do not have a contractual relationship with at this time, but we are considering. So the RChain Developer Relations Group, about $776,000 for 12 months. The RChain Asia, $300,000, and incentivized testnet prize for $61,000. I'm going to move over to the rock side. This one is in green. So our rock assets, as of today, this morning, it's about 483 million. Rock, today's price was 13.11. We do have shares of Pyrofex common stock. We have over 1 million shares with an estimated value of 285,000. So our total assets, the US dollar equivalent in rock and other assets is about 63 million. Our immediate 1 month current liabilities for contractual obligations, founders' compensation, directors' compensation estimate for the 2017-2018 board members, an officer's contract, and board compensation for an estimate for the 2018-2019 board. Our total short-term current liabilities on the rock side is equal to about 715,000 US dollars. Right now we're looking at our short-term potential obligations. So these are items of business that we're interested in pursuing, but we have not made a commitment yet. So the RChain Solutions Group, RChain Research Grants, a sublease office in Seattle, Resonate, RChain Asia, RChain Europe, RChain Developer Relations Group, and incentivized testnet prize. That total is the US dollar equivalent of about 7.5 million.
Did you already open it? So 3 fingers wide.
Okay, so next we're going to look at our P&L. It's aggregated into quarters, Q1, Q2, and Q3. These are the US dollar equivalents. So on the income side, cryptocurrency sales. Miscellaneous, in Q3 we had an earnest money deposit for the RChain house, membership dues, and some interest. On the expenses side, these are contractors. General contractors include people that are helping with business development, marketing and design, and organizational management. Contractors for developer relations and marketing, who are working on supporting our portfolio companies, technical content development, and website and blog work. R&D is Pyrofex. Conferences includes travel for employees or executives to attend blockchain events. Advertising, this was mainly for work associated with brand development and a logo for our song and RChain. Sponsorships includes any events that we have sponsored. We host or sponsored a couple events in the past couple months. So strategic partnerships, you'll see a big number there, $40 million in ROC was paid combined to Reflective Ventures and Pythia. And then you'll see another big number here in Q3, the 19.9. A lot of that comprises of the immersion deal. We paid about $7.7 million US dollars and $10 million in ROC. We paid Reflective Ventures for assisting with node validator work. The promotion there is a prize that we gave to a portfolio company at a deal day event. Co-op hosted events, we had four events in 2018 so far: a governance forum, RCon 2 in Boulder, RCon 3 in Berlin, and H3 Uni in Seattle over the summer. And we have a bounty program for our members, and those are paid in ROC. Legal and professional services, legal accounting, licenses and subscriptions, that's including office software, hosting on AWS, and other items like Zoom and DocuSign. Office supplies, including items for the R House. There's a small cell phone expense, not much for rental and lease right now. Repairs and maintenance and utilities for the R House. Bank fees, a small amount for meals and entertainment, and travel. A large portion of this was incurred in Q3 for traveling to Berlin and H3 Uni. Health benefit expenses for employees, as well as insurance, board compensation, and payroll-related expenses for employees. There was a penalty for one of the states where we have an employee, and we've resolved that, but it did incur a fee. RChain Europe was paid in ROC, RChain Asia, and a real estate purchase in April. So here we're looking at our budget projections for 2018, for the last 3 months of 2018, and up until mainnet in 2019. This is the US dollar and liquid crypto portion. Contractors, R&D again is Pyrofex. Conferences, we'd like to eliminate that to 0. The developer relations group. Co-op hosted events is 0, sponsorships is 0, as well as advertising. Strategic partnerships, the 2.2 that you'll see right here is for Reflective Ventures. Promotions is 0. RChain Asia, this is a budget proposal. Legal and professional includes potential legal expenses for trademark and tax, as well as professional tax consulting work. Insurance, you'll see a number here. This includes a D&O insurance policy that we recently purchased. Utilities, again, is for the R house. The cell phone expense will go to 0. Bank fees and transactional fees, about $400 a month. Meals and entertainment is 0. Travels, we're on a strict budget for travel to $15,000 a month. Employee health care benefits and payroll expenses, including bonuses, taxes, IRS payments, and wages. Again, these are all items that we would like to participate in. Some of them we do not have a contract for at this time. Okay, thank you. Moving forward, this is the RChain budget for ROC with our 2018 projections and Q1 2019. So contractors' fees, a lot of our contractors are being paid in ROC. The developer relations group right here primarily comprises of contractors. Strategic partnerships, these include some of the items that we looked at before that we're considering funding: the RChain Solutions Group, research grants, and Resonate. RChain Asia is a proposal. RChain Europe. Legal and professional fees, our general counsel accepts ROC. So we're budgeting about $80,000 a month payable in ROC. Office rents and lease would be our Pioneer Square sublease with Reflective Ventures. And the last item is wages for employees. We have 15 employees on staff, and they're taking a combination of cryptocurrency and ROC. Okay, so my last spreadsheet is a burn rate analysis. Again, we looked at these assets in US dollars and liquid crypto. A few minutes ago, it's about 3.9. And here you can see our current burn rates, including the expenses that I just showed you. Again, not everything is a contractual obligation right now. This does not include our tax obligations, the immersion contracts, any legal expenses for Pythia, which is in dispute right now, and then fluctuations in cryptocurrency rates. All right, I'm available for any questions. Yeah.
I'm Megan, by the way, for those of you I don't know. Can you hear me? So I'm really interested to hear from the co-op management about what we're going to do. Like, what's the strategy to be further implementing more austerity measures and other things to make this work? So I think that probably, and I'm guessing most of the content questions aren't necessarily directed towards Kate, they'd be towards co-op management.
So with respect to austerity measures, one of the first things that we'll be doing is looking at a mortgage against or loan against the our house like that. Yes.
So why not sell it off?
Because then we have liabilities against that. If it comes in as a loan, we don't have liabilities against it. We have.
We could have more working capital if we did that than if we sold it.
But there's also, well, so I don't know that there's also.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so anyway, we essentially get more working capital if we get a loan against it rather than selling it. That's correct. Yeah. We have. We're in the process of. We have already ranked employees and contractors, and are in the process of bringing the staff into alignment with our budgets. At the end of the day, the austerity measures don't get us as far as we want to go. Mm-hmm. That's the bottom line. Mm-hmm. So the only path forward is fundraising.
And can you speak to how that process is going?
Yes, I can. So we are, as I said, we are in the process of making a resale of some of the components of the RSong application, and there will be a meeting in the middle of November to complete the diligence process, and at that point, we will move to negotiations. The diligence process is effectively a slam dunk. So there are two pieces to this. One is that they will provide us a. Is this being live streamed? Mm-hmm. Okay, then I have to stop there. If anyone who wants to get the further details on this can speak to me privately, but I can't. We just cannot speak about this on live streamed internet. I wish I could. But you're welcome to come and speak to me privately or in groups, but I can't speak any more about it. And I hope you understand the awkwardness of the situation, right? It's like the more people want visibility into this deal, the more pressure it is on the deal, the less likely that happens. There's nothing. I wish I could say more. If we turn off the cameras, then I can speak to the membership.
So I guess maybe, right, there are definitely, right, and you guys are in it, difficult decisions that have to be made going forward. Mm-hmm. Have you guys done a retrospective about, so I've heard you articulate the strategy, mm-hmm. A number of times, right? Has there been any discussion, and this is the point I brought up on some of the community calls, that going in this direction was off mandate for the co-op?
Well, we certainly have done retrospective. As to whether it's off mandate, we haven't spoken to that apart from the conversations that you and I have had on the town hall calls and subsequently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think being that we're all here together, this would be an interesting conversation to have, and I'd be interested to hear what other people have to say. I've made my opinion clear that doing this deal making this investment was off mandate for the co-op. My impression was that the co-op was meant to manage the blockchain. To me, this doesn't fit into that. But this is only my opinion, and I'd be curious to hear what others think.
We have some questions from Discord. I'll go ahead and read those. This is from Rick S. Why was the board resolution to sell portions of liquid crypto into fiat not done? I'm not exactly sure what resolution he's referring to.
No, you're exactly right. I had a team put in place to do that. I didn't ride the team hard enough. I had to take full responsibility for that. I hired individuals specifically to help with that process, and it wasn't prioritized.
Okay. Next question, why have there not been regular updates from the state of the Treasury?
So that, I think, really has to do with transition. We had our last update when Lisa Rice came on board, and I think there's been sort of a transition period as we the financial team begins to understand what their requirements are in terms of communication. So again, it's a matter of people getting used to the culture, I think, is the simplest way to put it. That's it.
So I guess, additionally, we've seen the passage of a few items of business here with regards to tightening up the operations of the co-op. So I know that the new board hasn't even gotten a chance to get started yet, but I think it'd be beneficial to the community to get relatively frequent updates about the implementation of those items of business, especially with regards to financial transparency and the other items.
Yeah, I agree. The one item with respect to financial transparency that was with respect to reporting to the community was actually affected in our bylaws, so it's a little bit of a moot point. It's something that we have to do anyway, and we have to do it in order to make even a halfway decent run at the 501c12. So yeah, it's being done.
And how are oh, sorry, I'm just totally taking over. Can I just ask one more question?
Please.
I'll bring you the mic. But, and how is and I apologize if I haven't seen this, but the plan for your transition in your absence, or the coverage plan, how's that coming along?
Yeah, so already the board has provided one of the VP positions that we want to be creating and then filling, and we're in the process of identifying the other VP roles and then filling those.
Is there any information about what the job recs are, what the operation, the hierarchy structure?
Yes, we can certainly provide that. But right now it's still under discussion. But we can provide the rough outline of what we want to do.
While it's under discussion, would that be something that members could be involved in?
Of course.
So my question is, what are the plans for if this deal that we're working on, or you guys are working on, mid-November falls through?
Yeah, so as I said, we're also working on bridge funding and other fundraising activities. So that's essentially, those are our only options, right? So we have the validator sale, specific bridge funding opportunities that we're pursuing right now, and 2 sales that are under contemplation for the resale of the RChain components.
Sorry to monopolize the mic, but so my understanding was that from past community calls that if there was any change in board management, that those deals might be in jeopardy. So I'm wondering...
The management specifically, yes.
Right. So I'm wondering what is, so this is why I'm kind of bringing up this coverage plan, because I'm concerned if you're the primary one negotiating the deals and you're going to be away, what is the co-op going to do?
Oh, yes. So I will make sure that I will be available to complete those deals.
This may be a silly question, but I'd like to hear the answer anyway. Have you considered selling rocks as a way to raise funds?
Yes.
And that wasn't on your list. Why not?
That's a part of the bridge funding options.
Oh, okay. I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Question for Kate about income or tax obligations. And I would be curious about your assumptions in the tax calculation that was made. My understanding is that capital gains on realized gains from the sale of cryptocurrency at a basis starting of 0 to say whatever 35 cents or pick whatever number, whether it's paying a person or selling rocks, that's taxable. And then it can be offset by certain kinds of expenses. But I'd love to hear your assumptions about the calculation that goes into the income or to the tax obligation line, which if I forget exactly what was on the liability slide, but 3.5 million or something around
That's
that.
correct, yes.
Can you describe the assumptions that go into that number?
Yeah, we are engaged with Hunt Jackson. They're a tax consultant firm in Seattle. We've met with them a few times and shown them they have access to all of our books and records. They prepared our 2017 return and did an analysis and met with us at the beginning of this month. They estimated that our net loss from 17 combined with the cryptocurrency transactions in 17 was about $3.5 million due in April 15th, 2019.
And for 2018?
No, that was 2017. 2018 will be looked at as they start to engage in doing compilations.
So, I'm sorry, maybe I'm not understanding. So is there an expected tax liability due, let's say, in March or April as
For
well?
2017?
For 2018?
For 2018, we are, I believe, expecting to defer, yeah.
April.
Uh-huh. 18 is anticipated to be end of May. Okay, thank you, David. Thank you, Kate. Well, Kate, would you mind repeating what David summarized? So people streaming can hear.
Sure, David mentioned that 2018 tax obligations are expected to be deferred till 2019. 2017 should be payable in 2018, or rather 2019.
I think the other part of Ed's question was, for those of us who don't know that much about taxation, what kinds of expenses in 2017 or 2018 would count against crypto gains, capital gains?
So I believe you're referring to like operating expenses, business operating expenses?
Yeah, I mean, none of us are tax experts, but could you just give us a big picture?
Well, businesses, I showed you the list of all of our business expenses. Those are
So just all of those ROC business expenses,
ROC
for
and
instance,
US
would
dollars,
be okay.
Crypto or liquid crypto as well.
That would offset capital gains.
Yeah, so for example, when it comes to compensating people, we recognize a gain, but we also recognize a loss, so it comes out as a net zero.
I see.
Any other questions?
Is it possible to get the budget or the burn rate back up? So I'm curious, I'm Rahul with Test in Los Angeles, a reflective portfolio company, and I'm curious, it feels like the avenues towards moving forward are our song and related asset sale or fundraising. I'm curious on the fundraising side, like what is the strategy around that? Is it going to be like a private discount sale or at a discounted rate? Because obviously anybody can buy rock now at its price, and what is the both confidence level of making a large private sale, and what would the structure of that be? Just market rate or?
Yeah, so we're that's lower on the list. Currently, what we're looking at are securitized loans, so loans that are securitized by a combination of ROC and letters of intent. So, for example, an $8 million loan from a capital partner that was securitized by a letter of intent together with some portions of ROC.
What does that mean, a letter of intent for security?
That's right, because if we have an intent on a large sale, for example, that can be utilized to, you can basically once we get you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but then the question is on the large sale, what's the idea behind that? Like,
I'm more than happy to talk about it, but not with the cameras going. I wish I could tell you while the cameras are rolling, but I can't. I hope you understand that.
I guess even just not with any names, but what's, just for a crypto company today in this market, who's buying large chunks of layer 1 smart contract platforms?
Oh, right. So, yeah, I think you're probably not up to speed on some of the other stuff. Okay,
No, not
right.
up to speed on anything.
Right. So, it turns out that the immersion cloud streaming access that we purchased, we have the right to resell that. Now, the codec represents greater than 40% guaranteed savings on the bandwidth of any streaming company.
Yeah, no, I understand all that. I'm thinking aside from the music-related stuff, just if in fundraising mode.
Okay. So I thought you were talking about the large sale. That's the large sale.
Oh, I was saying a large scale of rock.
No. So we again, as I mentioned a little while back, that is much lower priority right now. And the reason that's a lower priority is because of market conditions. Right. So
When you say lower priority, do you mean it seems like the priority should be getting money, however?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But currently, what that would do to the market is, I mean, the market dynamics there are not
Right.
ideal.
But
I think John would like to speak to this.
okay.
Hey guys, John West here. So IOB5's just passed. So what that means is the co-op has 20 million ROC as the starter fund, and then 55 million ROC to be done in a validator sale. So the co-op has 55 million ROC to work with. No other ROC besides that, besides the 20 million starter pack, which has to be used to do, a litany of things. We saw some of the things up there. To my estimate, Kate could clarify, but I believe that the co-op pays contractors a total of maybe like 1.3 million ROC per month. So of that 20 million, that's where that is going. And then we saw anything from RChain solutions to research, et cetera, to the marketing team has to get some amount of those ROC. There's not going to be too many left over. So there's really that 55 million that's allocated in for a token sale, right? And then you could imagine any kind of like auction dynamic of how to be done with that, but the bottom line is that's the total amount of ROC the co-op has to work with, and the total amount of dollars is just whatever the market's willing to pay for them, right? And then we'll see how many dollars that is and like how far that can like take development or however that money is to be used. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it seems like that's a couple $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it seems like there's 60 days of runway.
Yep.
So IOB5 was just like.
Sorry, I didn't get
So IOB5 basically, if we didn't have any. If we didn't have any other way to do capital injection, IOB5 would have been the end of the co-op. What it means is we don't have the capital available to the co-op in order to either do a sale or do a securitized loan that would meet the runway requirements. Yeah. Oh, okay. Sure. We just walked through that right at the top of the hour, so I'm not gonna repeat it. But anyway, it left the co-op with almost no room to maneuver.
And Greg, to be clear, when you're talking about a securitized loan, you're really talking about a loan that's backed up by collateral, therefore security, as opposed to securitizing an asset, correct?
Correct. That's right. Yes.
Another question coming in from, I'll just ask that quick and then I'll pass it on. So we've heard a few days ago that funding would be secured within days. I've heard now 2 weeks. It seems the date is moving here and there. Now it seems like possibly 2019. Could you please comment on when and if and how you will communicate money that has been reached to achieve mainnet?
Absolutely. So, as I've mentioned several times, the only the major source of uncertainty here is not the if, but the when. That is why we're seeking bridge funding in the interim. So we cannot at this point say when the deal will be closed. However, I feel quite confident that we will close the deal. That's not the issue here because it's basically too good and there's no other option for a company. You can't get this somewhere else. That's the issue. So it becomes an anti-competitive move to not close a deal like this. The win, well, I mean, how many people have experience closing deals of this size? You know, we've heard estimates of 4 to 6 weeks, but I'm not gonna make these kinds of promises, and it would be really silly, especially with cameras running, to make promises like this. And more importantly, I think anyone who is familiar, whether they bought a house or any other kind of negotiation, this kind of talking about this is not good for the negotiations. Right? It's just simply puts us in a very awkward position, and I hope people understand that.
I have a quick question. We've got some of the new board members that are here, so I'm really curious to hear from the board members that are coming on, because I think there's a lot of us here that can certainly look at the situation we're in and say, you know, the current board or the one that's going out is responsible for where we are. So I'd like to hear from the board members that have just been elected, what they think of this, what they think of the plans that have been presented, and what they're going to do about this, knowing that we're out of money by the 1st of January. If these deals stretch out longer, that could very well happen. So I'm just curious to hear from those board members.
Thanks, boss. Okay, well, I'm Barry Cinnamon, for those of you who don't know me or my face. I think there's limited perspective that I personally can add, given that a lot of this information is new for me as of today, as of this week. There's been speculation, maybe for weeks, for months, about different aspects of this, but I've been learning alongside every other member, because until 15 minutes, 30 minutes ago, whatever, I was not a board member. I was just another member trying to figure out what was going on. So I'll just say this. I think promptly reviewing all of the available information, understanding the network of deals that are in the works that haven't been revealed publicly for various reasons, and finding a path to capitalizing the project to completion of mainnet, and ideally being able to make a credible claim that we have adequate resources to get beyond that to Patches or to Venus, I think is absolutely critical. I think when you have a project that is capitalized in the kind of peculiar way that our, I don't know, humanity has decided to capitalize cryptocurrency projects, where your primary asset is a token and you basically can sell that and try to use those funds to realize value in the token. I think what we have to do is realize that value. So all of the proof we can offer to the market that we're going to deliver the software is the only source of value to that token. And so I think we have to show that we have a strong footing to get the software delivered. And, you know, getting into more detail is, you know, a little bit difficult without having more information available. Thanks for the question, though. I think it's the right question.
Since we have the burn rate or slides up here, Kate, can you go into a little bit of detail? The January expense of $3 million, what is the biggest chunk of that?
It's Reflective Ventures.
Question one, is that a term that can be renegotiated? I mean, we need to think openly about how we get to launch, and bringing more money in is certainly a part of the equation, but figuring out how to cut the burn on the shit that doesn't need to be there is another part of the equation. And so when I see a big nut like that, I think, okay, how is anybody helped if we pay to have a VC firm bring people to a platform that just died?
I think it's a great question.
I would just say that, it's a contract and then it has to be renegotiated, and until it's renegotiated, right, it's like a liability, but I'm sure Reflective gets that. They're not trying to kill, have the co-op die from a liability they can't meet, but it should be a discussion and a process. It shouldn't be a town hall where a bunch of pressure gets put on Reflective or Reflective trying to hold the co-op hostage,
Yeah, and certainly I'm not suggesting we do that here. I'm just seeing the data on the screen, and I'm sure other people in this room that have ran companies are asking the same questions of these big nuts. And
yeah, I mean, there are some other nuts that we have been able to crack. We can't really talk about some of those just yet. We have to wait until Monday before we can talk about those. But we do have some significant savings and reduction on our runway in order on the development side. So we can talk a little bit about that on Monday. And I'll talk in a lot more detail on the Wednesday hangout about that.
Okay, I'm going to talk now. So a couple of things first. My bias is going to be to deliver the platform. That's the number one thing I need to do. And I want to say that I'm extremely flattered by the outpouring of support and people giving me a superwoman cape and all the wonderful things about being on the board. But the more I have looked at this, and the past 5 days, I have to tell you, between Thursday and today, I have gotten very little platform work done. And that's a real problem, right? I wasn't able to help Kelly and Rita relaunch the testnet today because I was on a plane to come up here. And I'm glad to be here, but I really think I should have been in front of my computer relaunching the testnet and making sure that that went really well. What I'm running up to is I will be a loud voice on the calls, but I don't think I can give enough attention to being an active, fully engaged board member and delivering the platform. And my feeling is that delivering the platform is what I must do. Because if I get on the board and I really want to dedicate my time to the board, the platform work will suffer. And I don't think it can afford to suffer. One sec, let me finish, okay? The second thing I'm noticing is that I see that the burn rate for development is about $400K a month. The October estimate is 1.8 million, the November estimate is 1 million, December estimate is 847. I don't think enough austerity measures have been put in place. And I think more austerity measures need to be put in place quickly and aggressively, because I know how developers think. And I'm very concerned about us trying to get even a collateralized loan because the cooperative has very little income. And I don't know if anybody's a banker in this room, but bankers really like income when they give you a loan. And I don't know what the cooperative's income is. And I don't think they will accept rock. I don't think we want to sell rock to make our mortgage payments on our house, which is why I think a lot of people are thinking that, yes, we may have less working capital if we sell our house, but I don't think we will be able to get a collateralized loan for our house because we don't have income.
It's not necessarily to an institution, it's to a private individual. It's a much better solution.
Okay. Okay. That's potentially, yeah, something that we could do then in that case. But, I mean, those are my concerns, and the same thing goes with any kind of bridge financing, with any kind of a loan officer. They're going to look for income, and I don't think that.
The loans that we're pursuing, again, are not with institutions. These
Okay.
are with private individuals,
Okay.
right? So these are people in the crypto space who understand the value of the project.
Okay. Did you have a question, Alan?
I just want to make sure that you're able to do both Pyrofex and the Cooperative, because we both need you. And if you need support, just reach out, make sure it happens.
I mean, I can definitely support the Cooperative. I don't think I can accept the board seat is what I am saying, right? That's what I'm saying very clearly right now, just because of the amount of, I haven't gotten any platform work done just in the past 5 days. I haven't even started. As a board member. I didn't even know I was going to win the seat. And in the past 5 days, it has consumed so much of my time and attention, because when people wanted to ask me questions, of course I wanted to answer their questions. Of course I wanted to hear them. But it was constantly like, go, stop, go, stop. You can't do engineering that way. Engineers speak up. If you're getting interrupted every hour or so, you can't really make good progress on your work. And I put my hat in the to run for the board, but when I did not realize the monumental task that is in front of this board. And now as I look at it, it's very concerning. Barry, you've got your hands full, and I applaud you and Kevin for stepping up and stepping into this role, because you have a lot of work ahead of you, really do. And I don't want to take up any more time, but if I sign up for something, I'm going to want to give it 100%, and I just don't see how I can do both effectively.
I hope that in the next day or so, you'll figure this out.
No. I'm very flattered, but I'm pretty sure that my decision is final. Any questions?
Meta, while you're on that point, I just want to add one thing. I've also had renewed popularity in the community lately, and the community itself has really found its voice in some ways lately, which is a good thing in bad circumstances. And something that struck me, and I don't know if this will help us at all with the task ahead of us, but I think it's worth recognizing in this venue. We're not taking this job because of vanity, because of ego, or because of the rewards. We're taking it because this is an opportunity to serve this community and make this project happen. I think all of the people in the community who stepped up during the last few days to be present in Discord, present on the community debrief, and present elsewhere, they need to continue to be present. I don't think we're going to be able to do this alone for all the reasons you mentioned, that it's a monumental task, and because this is ultimately going to be a cooperative effort, or it's going to be a failure. So all of those people can't, say, okay, great, we did our job, we voted, and now we're done, and these people are going to come in and fix it. They're going to have to continue participating in order for this to get fixed.
Meta, I hope you reconsider. A couple things. The board going forward does not need to be as hands-on and active if there are officers, VPs, and subcommittees that take up more of the, intensive time that this board has had to put in over the last year. Your voice is very, very, very helpful. And me personally, although I don't want to see any delays in the platform, I think the importance of holding this together is just as important. So I hope you accept the board position, and speaking for myself, will support you as much as you need. And I hope everyone feels that way.
Can I squeeze something in there, Greg? One comment. So, speaking to what Barry said and what Meta said and what Ed just said, I think we're in this situation now because of some strategic decisions that were made, but also some failures in operational execution, right? So, I think what you said about, taking some of the operational lift from the board is a good thing. I think that the community, right, like Barry said, has the ability to be more engaged. And we are not in charge of the co-op, right, being part of the community. And so we need to see from co-op management strategic ways to engage the community. Because I have tried to be an engaged community member, but I still find myself surprised and my voice not really heard or being shut out. So I think that the new board, whoever accepts their roles, right, there's a lot of work to be done in terms of getting the co-op through this situation, but also looking at processes going forward to better engage the community and create a better cooperative structure. So.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add one thing too. I know when we were talking about the $55 million ROC token sale, even at 13 cents, that would be $7 million. That's a lot of dollars, right? Especially if the dev is 400K, and there's a lot of other stuff. And I really think that, RChain can run leaner and tighter, and there should be respect for the money. And $7 million is a lot of dollars.
It's not, Seth, you know that, right? You can't sell that much rock. That's right. And have it be sold at 13 cents.
Sure.
That's exactly right.
Right, but even if it's at, 10 cents, 30% lower? I'm just saying, right, it's a lot of dollars. Right, even if you got $2 million or $3 million,
I think
it's a lot of dollars.
Meta hit the nail on the head. If you look at the operating costs up there, less than half, way less than half, a quarter of it is being spent on the developers that are building the platform. I can't think of a startup I've ever been in that had that kind of financial budget, ever. I've been in 5 startups. Never have I seen such little spend in this early phase of a technology build toward development.
I mean, I completely agree, but all I'm saying is, even with $2 million or $3 million, if you make the proper changes, money could go a long way. That's the only thing I'm arguing. Right? And I think that, crypto has gotten a lot of, hodlers and excited people, but people shouldn't forget that $2 million is a lot of dollars, and $2 million can go a long way if it's managed correctly and put into the essentials and the important things.
What value is coming from the 75% of the burn?
Yeah,
that's my
totally.
question.
Yeah.
Where's the ROI?
Talking about the 25% that's going to the dev. So what value is coming from that 75% of the burn? Ultimately. That's the kind of question that needs to be asked.
Well, as we said, there are some large nuts that we would have to address here. And I think part of the issue with respect to that is that it's not just about dev at the level of the platform. It's also about dev at the level of the dApps. So, for example, the platform won't have the kind of stability or performance or reach unless we have significant dApps. That's absolutely critical. You cannot deliver, think about it in terms of just one of the components. So for all the dev here, think about it in terms of just one of the components of this platform, which is a programming language. If you don't write a gazillion applications against that programming language, you don't have a real programming language. End of story. And that's just one of the components. We also have a storage mechanism. If you don't write a bunch of storage applications against your storage mechanism, you don't have a storage solution. End of story. That's just how it works. You're not going to get to the kind of quality that is required in order to deliver this for financial applications of the kinds that have been contemplated by the crypto market without significant pressure on the platform. But I'd like to move on to just a discussion. So first of all, I want to acknowledge the engagement of the community. This has been fantastic. Despite the fact that we're in a moment of crisis, I very much appreciate the people stepping forward and stepping up. That's the only way this is going to start to become real, is if people step forward and make this thing their own. That's what it has to be. It has to belong to the community. It doesn't belong to the board. It doesn't belong to the management. It belongs to the community. I think Alan was talking about that today with me as we drove over. So the ownership of who owns the co-op? Well, the members own the co-op. And it's been warming my heart that the members have come forward. Have there been operational mistakes? You bet. I take full responsibility for every single one of them. So I take responsibility for the things that have gone wrong and put us in this place. My apologies, mea culpa, absolutely. But that means, therefore, that it's on my shoulders to make sure that there's a way out. It's on me to make sure that there's a way out. And if the community wants to step forward with a different solution, and it's a viable solution, and it works, I'm absolutely there. Yes, so there's been a planned absence that is to coincide with the period where we are hardening and the code is frozen. And during that time, there's a transition where we have VPs come into place to help with the day-to-day operations. The features are frozen, that's correct, yeah. Correct. So I want to reiterate some things I made on the community call because I wasn't able to get to the punchline. So there actually is a punchline here that I think is actually relevant to what we're feeling. So the question that I have is, what is the real signal? For me as a technologist, part of what makes the real signal here is all of these actual releases. That's what I would hope that everyone in the market is watching. These releases. And they go to the release announcements and they see the features. And they go, oh wow, this project is making progress like I've never seen before. That's what I would hope the community, and in particular, the crypto market is paying attention to. Now, let's ask the question, what are they actually paying attention to? Right?
It just strikes me, everyone who has a kid probably goes through this experience. You or your partner or some surrogate is pregnant, and you think this is crazy, but eventually, the baby's gonna come out. That's like this, right? It's crazy right now. But eventually mainnet is gonna come out. But here's the thing. As a parent, 2 times now, I'm very blessed in that regard. I can tell you both times, I didn't learn from the first one, so both times I had the experience of learning, oh shit. When mainnet comes, everything gets harder.
That's what I'm...
It doesn't get easier, it gets harder. So I just wanna say, because I heard you go through this morning, and I think it's an important point to address. Doubts that people have on the outside about our ability to operate relate not just to delivering the software, which is, it feels like, okay, game day, we delivered the software, but we have to show them that we're going to be able to execute after mainnet, raise that kid.
Yep, I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, 100%. So we're on the same. In fact, what I would argue is that the level of complexity after mainnet is 10x on every single front: organizational, operational, financial, in terms of the technical. Every single one of these fronts, we're going to be facing 10x complexity to what we face now, which is why it's absolutely critical that we get the kind of engagement that we're getting now. It's really, really important that we grow this community. I think, as I've tried to say, the market doesn't pay attention to this. If we were to look at the market right now, the referendum on our delivery is terrible, right? Here at Node 6 and testnet, which is right here, where we have dropped the most we have ever dropped. And that's before there was any fear or uncertainty about the project. That's before there was any message or concern or anything about the project. If you compare this against our standing relative as a ERC20, the biggest drop is here before there's any of this uncertainty. So the market is actually not providing us a decent referendum on our work. There's no referendum here at all about our operational worries or concerns. The only thing that's visible at this point, all the way up to here, is just our execution. And the market referendum is clear. So obviously, there's a big disconnect. Right? So if you look at it, what happened to me was I wake up in the April timeframe and say, holy shit, who's thinking about the actual validators? Who in the community is making sure that the validators are going to come? And so then I went to the board and I said, hey, board, we really need to have a validator sale so we can ensure that there are actual validators that are going to secure the network. And by this point here, we have enough data. At the moment we do the immersion deal, we have enough data for us all to know that the if you build it, they will come theory was completely debunked. There was no way this network was going to come into life unless we do something else. So please let that sink in for a minute. This idea that if we build it, they will come was not supported by the market data. And we had people all over the world asking questions of various markets, from the Southeast Asia to Europe to the US. It just simply wasn't the case. So we have to take a different strategy here. Basically, there was no interest. There was no the point is the validator, no one is willing to stand up hardware, no one is willing. And if they want to build this for real, they have to begin now. They won't have, if we go, turn it on, okay, it's on. Do we have a network? At what point do we have a network? At what point is it, right? That's how software gets built, right? You start with early test code, and then you run through iteration after iteration after iteration, so that when it's time to go live, you're actually live, not, oh, the code's tested and frozen, and now we go live. That's not how it works. That's always overlapping.
Is the piece that is the piece I'm missing that there's a lot of work that the validators need to do?
That's correct.
That hasn't been done.
That's
that
correct.
Work needs to be incentivized.
So
that's
they
news to
could
me.
be running.
So if you build it, they will come theory goes, build the blockchain, release it as done version, your main net, first net, and then people will be attracted to it because it has these nice properties.
Yeah,
It's that simple. This is a different theory that involves lots of work. Well, I'm saying lots. Some work by the validators that has.
correct.
That's not just I'm going to pay for hardware to run.
That's
the network
correct. There's
some value there.
there's a lot of work that has, for example, being a part of the Genesis ceremony and the whole bit. There's a kind of care and feeding for the node software that has to go on.
I guess this is what I get for not paying attention for a few months there. But that's a different theory than we started with, right? We started with a much simpler theory. Build a great chain and people will be attracted to it.
Yeah, a great chain, when you talk about proof of stake, is very different from a great chain when you have proof of work.
Well, it wasn't when the theory was proposed, right? Maybe it became that way, and I'm not arguing that it isn't that way now.
Fair. Okay, so that has to do with my wake-up call here, right? And we saw this with other networks, right? So
I guess so, but I don't think it's common knowledge now that there's a lot of work that validators need to do, because I think people are still waiting for the chain to be delivered so that they can be validators.
Okay.
So
right?
let's say that again clearly so that everybody who's non-technical can understand it.
So basically what we're saying is that there is work that a validator has to do, which is why we set up partners to partner with validators who just want to provide capital for staking.
So the nature of our network is a different kind of network. It's proof of stake, and so it's much more complex to launch.
That's right. That's effectively correct. Yeah. It's actually there's a lot of complexity that goes into standing up the Bitcoin network, but there's even more complexity here. That's correct. So the question that I have, and I'm wide open, if there's anyone in the community who wants to come forward with a different proposal for how to secure the network, I'm all ears. If anybody wants to come to the board or to the officers and say, here's a different way to get the validators interested, then we're all, we'll entertain every single proposal. But one that actually has legs, ones that stands up against the market data.
Well, I thought that the cooperative was going to run nodes. They were going to run some nodes.
The cooperative is going to run some nodes, but
Okay.
that doesn't represent a secure network.
Well, no, understood. But it will represent a network that other validators can bond onto.
That's
Right.
correct.
And so right now, it's a lot of work to run a node because the software is still raw. And we've partnered with wonderful validators, like Karen, who happens to be here, and other validators that have helped us out a lot in terms of getting the software out in the wild. But my assertion is that when mainnet launches, it's not going to be hard to run a node or become a validator, provided there's a network.
What does it mean to be a network? I think a network, it's just sort of, this is like the internet, right? It's like there is no internet if you have two machines.
I completely understand what it is you're saying. And I would assert that the validator sale didn't go well, much more because of marketing and management of the validator sale, like any other technology company. If it was all about good software, Microsoft wouldn't be as big as it is. 100%. As a Mac user for many years, I can say that.
Okay,
so I mean, it's definitely about execution, right?
I agree 100%. I think there are lots of, but what we've been trying to do with the validator sale was to elicit as much market response as we possibly could. So one of the things that we had to do was to kind of go back and forth with the market. There had to be a lot of testing of the market. Initially, we thought that there would be good engagement. A lot of conversations happened, but the truth is, once we got down to brass tacks with a specific economic proposition, even though that economic proposition was tested in lots of different ways, there is no interest. And there's no interest because the economic proposition is not clear enough for them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
because it's not ready.
That's the real.
It's not ready. Right.
No, it's not because it's not ready. It's because there's no economic proposition that is interesting. It's a chicken and egg thing. In order to be ready means, and this is what I was about to get to, ready means transaction volumes. That's the point at which the validators start to get interested.
So I'll speak that way. So
I'm about to get to that. Thank you. Perfect question, perfect time.
Hey, just one thing on the last point before we jump into that. My proposed solution would be to get the burn in line the most possible, run everything the leanest possible, and then try to convince potential people that would run nodes that everything is being done to give the best chance to make a mainnet, and then have some kind of like tapering incentive curve to incentivize people to buy the hardware now where they get a larger return than if they bought it later.
Okay, good. Thank you. This is the if you build it, they will come.
I'd like to say one thing about potential validators, and this is not a criticism of what went wrong, but maybe something we could do right, which is that just my own personal experience, somebody who's thinking about being a potential validator, when it first came out, okay, what do we need? What kind of hardware do you need? Well, we sort of need this, we sort of need that. Oh, now we need a whole lot more. So we need to do price calculations, which is how everybody makes money. It's like, what's my monthly expenses versus what's I'm going to make? And then what really, I have to say this, is that there is no clarity around sharding, or like, there's all this confusion about how a validator would jump in easily. You look at other cryptos, that even ones that are attempting proof of stake, they have a very A, B, C, D. And we have this complex situation. And if what I think the number one thing has to happen is this needs clarity and messaging. And you can't have messaging if you don't have clarity.
I agree 100%. And the way we get that is we engage early adopters to help us find the clarity.
The way you get that is you have the financial incentives and the amount of hardware and the expenses worked out so people can actually make an educated assessment.
Absolutely. So I very much agree with that point. And we should have, and I believe we do have, at least a rough approximation in the validator document that's on GitHub. But you're right, it could be refined and made clearer.
When it comes to like sharding and, oh, what, is there going to be a limit on the price, or is it there a minimum, or are there going to be multiple shards, or is there going to be all this stuff is still like floating around. You know, I'm sorry, it's just...
No, that's good. I think a lot of those questions are actually answered in the sharding document, but they probably could be made clearer. But I want to get to his question, because he's been waiting very patiently. And so if we could just allow me to answer his question, then we'll come back to the remaining questions. Okay, so the plan of record, going back to the beginning of the co-op, was to look at high volume, low risk, high transaction volume, low risk markets, right? So the real issue is, how do we leverage to get lots of transaction volume? And how do we do this in a way that where we have the least effort to the most return? That's the big question. And if you look at across all the markets, essentially that singles out arts and entertainment. And largely because arts and entertainment is a celebrity culture. So you get these celebrities, and celebrities can move millions of people. So the example I gave recently is with Taylor Swift. She came out about her position with respect to voting, and in one day, 65,000 people registered to vote. So this is the kind of leverage that celebrity culture, that the celebrities in celebrity cultures offer, right? So, and then you can go through each of the markets, and I actually did this in 2009 and 2010, and mapped out the market plan for how to approach the capitalization of decentralized markets. So you start from the arts and entertainment, and then you move into higher and higher risk markets. So you don't actually go to the financial market. To me, Bitcoin was a bit of a surprise, because they went straight for financial markets, but it made sense in hindsight, because they were all navel-gazing financial markets. You know, they're nothing like Forex or any of the actual financial markets, right? So it was kind of a toy financial market in some sense, a toy that grew into, a multi-billion-dollar thing. But in general, what you want to do is you want to go through each of the different markets in terms of the level of risk. right? So there's not a lot of risk if my picture of a cat or my picture of, you know, what I had for breakfast gets lost, right? So that works out. Now and you can dive into those kinds of markets and you can say to yourself, well, between the social networks and other kinds of arts and entertainment markets, which one do I do least effort for bigger bang? Does that make sense?
But
Right.
can I just interject here? Because we have, for those of us who have been on the community calls, we've heard you articulate this strategy.
But not everyone out here has, and he hasn't.
So I think that we understand that the validator sale didn't go well, and there are a variety of factors, including the market, that that dictated that. But this strategy and the way that it was executed have now bankrupted the co-op. And it concerns me as a member that, you know, we just went through all these financials and we're still defending how the deal went through. You know, I understand philosophically the strategy, and I think that you're a great visionary. It's like why I moved out to Seattle. It's why I'm interested in RChain, but the execution has been bad.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I don't think that, the one place where we might have a difference of opinion is I don't think it was necessarily the immersion deal. I think it was actually the combination of the immersion deal and the management of the treasury. I think those are the two things that combined.
The management of the co-op was aware of that situation when they made the immersion deal.
Actually, no. That was
you're saying
that was the problem, and that's kind of what I tried to point to. So the problem was
the
that
co-op board didn't have proper financial data when making this.
The co-op board had a misrepresentation of the actual on-the-ground assets. And after that, the crypto market dropped like that. So that's what happened. So yes, I agree with you. That was mismanagement. That's the best way you can characterize it.
So why are we still here defending this strategy?
Because right now, the strategy is the only thing that's going to get us out. So if you have another way to capitalize, if you have something else on the table that's going to raise the capital at the level that we need, and moreover, because of IOB 5, we can't even rely on crypto as a part of the strategy anymore. What we really need to do, and IOB 5, as I mentioned on the call today, IOB 5 is going to force the co-op to become more and more a fiat company and less a crypto company. And for quite some time. Why? Because I don't think any of you have a magic wand that's going to raise the crypto markets. I don't think we're going to see that for quite some time.
No, of course not. But
right. So as a result, we can't use our treasury to raise funds. So the only place to go is fiat.
Raising funds is definitely part of it. Another part is being very aggressive and more austere, and putting in the proper operational framework to ensure that this kind of thing never happens again. So raising funds isn't the only thing that we're talking about.
Okay, so let's say we put in an operational framework. So that's going to cost the management time and effort.
But this is their job.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not saying that we should shirk the job. All I'm saying is, after we're done with that operational framework, is the co-op closer to having delivered mainnet? Is the co-op? It isn't.
I 100% disagree.
Okay, that's an easy experiment to run in the model, right?
So I have a slightly different question. The floor was opened to suggestions. I've heard some suggestions from Reflective. Could maybe they say a few words about other approaches that we haven't yet heard of?
So maybe I'd just give a quick, short history. We were asked to come in and take a look at the immersion deal. We looked at it. We thought, interesting, not that exciting. We talked to immersion about potentially making a small investment, seeing how the technology goes, seeing how we could possibly incorporate it into the blockchain. And ultimately, Co-op stepped in and did the deal that they did, and we walked away from it, essentially. Our recommendation after that, when we became aware of the financial situation, because we have a fiduciary responsibility to our portfolio companies to continue to fund them, and we are tightly incentivized and tied to the price of rock, because that is the investment that was made into our fund. Our recommendation was to have Greg step aside as having any ability to make business decisions or handle any financial decisions on behalf of the co-op, that an administrator comes in, just like any other reorg situation. At that point, when the community, and I think that's what's happened, not only the RChain community, but the broader blockchain community loses faith and trust, that trust has to be restored. We recommended tremendous austerity measures, selling the art house, laying off probably 60+% of staff, and focus on the development and get down to mainnet launch with enough capital to get forward. At that time, at mainnet launch, I think the picture becomes a lot brighter, the ability to do further token sales and or raise additional capital. I think in this particular instance, or where we're at now, the community has no confidence in the leadership, no confidence in the board. The board is responsible ultimately for allowing these things to happen. And it is our opinion that there is no capital coming into this organization in the form of, it's possible that the license may be able to be sold. Hope is really not a strategy at this point. When you realize you're heading into the side of the mountain, it's time to make a course correction. That was called for at least 3 months ago, and we were told that we were crazy. We put up people to
3 months ago, there was no immersion deal, so that doesn't work.
Okay, 2 months ago. So when you realize that there's a major crisis ahead, you have to make a course correction immediately, and that wasn't done, and now we are where we are. And I hear a lot of discussion about hope. We hope we can get this done. We hope we can get that done. At the end of the day, that's not a strategy. So now it gets down to crisis management and how you're going to try and pull this out. And then the first step, in my opinion, and I think I share this with my partners, the first step is restoring confidence. I've been getting phone calls from all over the world. Is RChain dead? Is this project done? And those are hard questions to answer. We've been fielding those same calls from our portfolio companies. So it's time for some really deep, hard reflection in the middle of a crisis. If we all come together and we make good decisions, it's possible that this thing can be pulled out. Otherwise, a month and a half, co-op's out of money. So anyways, those were our suggestions. It fell on deaf ears. We were essentially completely barred from any representative or person that we put forth to run on for the board. That was completely denied, and therefore, at this point, we are bystanders and watching the car crash. So that's, I think, made my point, I guess.
So I thank you very much, Steve. Again, if I go from October back 1 month, that's September, I go back another month, that's August. So you guys were psychic because even the board didn't have this information in August. So 2 months, so 3 months down to 2 months still doesn't work.
So
it's important that we stick to facts and we stick to data. That's really important. So if we can keep the conversations to facts, it's much more helpful.
So Greg, if I can interrupt here real quick. So we've spent the last 2 or 3 weeks talking to most of our portfolio companies, and we were asked to come here and represent them. And Megan, thank you very much for your comments. Raul, Sam, so we've got a few of our companies here that are speaking, but for those other 20 that can't speak, I can tell you from them, they're really scared right now. They're really nervous. We have funded them with the belief that they are hiring employees. Well, they are hiring employees. They've built out offices. They're building protocol. And they get on a phone call on the town hall, and they hear you talking about this, and I can't tell you how many people call back saying, what is going on? Have I tied myself onto the wrong protocol? What are you guys as Reflective going to do? So our responsibility, first and foremost, nothing else, is to the portfolio companies. We have to protect them. And I am begging the new board members and the current board members to listen to that and listen to the community when it comes to those portfolio companies, because they are the lifeblood. We put together an entire document that we presented 3 or 4 weeks ago on a community call that showed the transaction volume. Greg was looking for it, the board was looking for it. It showed massive amounts of transactions, dollar values, everything that was going to happen on the RChain platform over the next 2 and 3 years. That was combined from all the companies we have. The answer that we got back from that was, this is great, thank you very much. Hey, the portfolio companies are doing great, but you know what? It pales in comparison to what our song's going to do. Do you know how that made those portfolio companies feel? Those are companies, again, that are real. Our song and what we have here, there's nothing there yet. And we're already throwing the portfolios under the bus for not performing to the level of what our hope is. And so again, I'm speaking on behalf of not just Reflective, but most of all of the portfolio companies that they are begging and asking for the board and the management to please right the ship so that they can do the right thing. If RChain cannot, it is our responsibility to find a landing spot for them. And we are working on that right now. We have to. We have to have a plan B for those portfolio companies. We are hoping, as Steve said, not the best strategy, but God, we are hoping that you pull a rabbit out of your hat, Greg. We are hoping that this platform takes off. We're hoping that it launches. We really, really are. All the portfolio companies are behind it. But if they don't, if this doesn't work, we have to have a place for them to land. So that's where we're standing right now. So the question was asked, what's Reflective think? Steve summarized it great. I'm talking on behalf of the portfolio companies. That's where we are right now.
Well, I love the fact that you mentioned hope. I think that the fear, uncertainty, and doubt becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I absolutely agree, Steve and Greg, that if, as a community, there continues to be a lot of fear and uncertainty, that just cycles and cycles and cycles. If we do a change of management and unwind the existing opportunities that are in front of us, which is certainly a possibility, that does not get us to mainnet. And the reason I've said that is that mainnet is not the code. Mainnet is the code plus a bunch of validators all over the world running the code. And that we have seen is not going to materialize under the if you build it, they will come strategy. It isn't. I wish that was the case. I would love to say we could fix this by dropping everything and just focusing on the code. But there's no evidence that that's the case. In fact, there's lots of evidence to the contrary. So I would, if I had any confidence that that would work, I would step aside in a heartbeat and let that strategy run. That would be great. I have no confidence at all that strategy works. None. I have no ego in this. I want the community to succeed. And I don't see a way for the community to succeed with that particular strategy. So I think what we have to do is we have to pull together behind the strategies that will actually deliver capital to the co-op.
Why can't that be parsed? Why can't you pursue capitalizing the immersion license with the deals that you're discussing, while at the same time making a dramatic change in management to restore confidence?
Because that will unwind those deals.
Yeah, how does a operational roadmap do anything but give confidence?
Say it again clearly.
How does not doing an operational roadmap provide extra confidence? What I'm trying to say is delivering an operational roadmap that may include some sort of reorganization strategy is going to give confidence to everybody.
Yeah, but that's what we're doing. We're providing exactly that, right? So as a part of a transition strategy right now, we're restructuring the cooperative. So that, and in particular, cooperative management. That's what we're doing, right? So the existing officers will be supported by a staff of vice presidents that are aimed at taking over the day-to-day operations that have not been successfully taken care of to date.
But this is very murky to me, and this is why I keep harping on this point, because my impression was that Kenny, who's an officer, is now going to be a VP.
But that's not the only VP. That's only one of the suite of VPs that we're providing. So we're currently looking for a VP of engineering. We're currently looking for a VP of community management. We're currently looking for a VP of marketing. Right. So these are things that we'd like to see. So there are certain people in this room that I think would make an awesome VP of engineering, and we have to get there.
Yeah, so my point is that to the extent that this plan can be distributed and there can be like strategic engagement by the community, I think that goes a lot to restore confidence. But we have to move very fast, and I'm just concerned at the pace at which the management is moving.
Okay.
Yeah, and to that point, if you deliver an operational roadmap that becomes law, it's somehow assured, and that includes addressing the concerns about the management and fiscal responsibility, then it may sound like words in the wind, but that opens the opportunity for people that could contribute if they had that confidence. Because
Sure.
there's been people that have that opportunity or that is available that won't do it because they don't have that confidence. It seems like a chicken and egg, but it's the lead domino that provides confidence in all of these situations.
Well, I think the lead domino that provides confidence is more and more certainty about the capital that's coming in. Now, if you're saying that the only way for capital to come in is through that operational map, that is materially not true. But we can do what Rich was suggesting, which is to have our cake and eat it too. So we can be pursuing those while pursuing an operational roadmap that gets us where we're going. And that is exactly what we have said we would do. And to your point, I agree that we have to move fast, but we can only move so fast when we have had an annual members meeting and a few other items on our plate. So yes, you're right. But that is, of course, our highest priority now. Right? So agreed, 100%.
I just want to clarify that what I was saying was that you personally invested in the deals that are on the table to realize substantial capital for operations. You could pursue that while at the same time the organization looked for another chief executive, because I think there's a real question about your capacity as founder, as genius, as visionary, as the one person talking for 2 hours in this meeting, as all the point person on all these meetings. It's a classic case of visionary founder syndrome. People are going, why can't this man who's building a distributed social network distribute his responsibilities to an intelligent swarm in this room?
And that's exactly what we're doing. That is precisely what we're doing. No, but I think we're actually.
I want to say
think
something after Rich here, if I can. I want to add something to what Rich has just said with respects to founder's syndrome. And I'm going to quote you, Greg. I cannot be pulled out of this deal or it won't happen. The validator sale will not happen unless I am there.
I
and
never
the reason,
said that.
Well, you did.
No, not about the validator sale. Sorry.
Well, you said that we will not have a network unless I am involved in some
no,
way.
I never said that. So
No,
please. No, it's really important to keep facts. I didn't. Please don't put words in my mouth.
Okay, I'm not
so
trying
I
to put.
absolutely said that there are certain deals related to the immersion and RSong assets that I have to be personally involved in. But I have never said that I have to be involved in the validator sale. I'm sorry, but that's not the case. So if you want, please stick to the facts.
Okay, very well. So I don't see any reason why we need to hire a bunch of VPs, because I don't see how that juxtaposes with an austerity program, right? So what I think the community is really looking for is fiscal responsibility and due diligence on any deals that we do, and another set of eyes on contracts. Perhaps the experts that we brought on board, the reflective team that has done and executed many, many deals, that have the expertise to bring them in and surround yourself with them. I think that's what the community is kind of, that's why we're frowning a little bit here, because we're talking about austerity on one hand, and then we're talking about an operational roadmap that involves hiring a bunch of people, which, again, my bias is to ship the product, to ship the platform. Funding development above all else is my priority. You don't need an entire team of individuals to look carefully at your finances and make cuts. You don't need a whole team to help you determine whether a particular loan you're going to go after is the right loan. What you need is an advisor, and you have those advisors, and you can pay just for that particular service. And I mean, I don't know, it seems fairly straightforward. If you got to tighten your belt, you tighten your belt.
Sure.
Right? And you don't tighten your belt by hiring a bunch more people. That's not the way that works.
I hear you, but you can actually do both, right? So you don't hire a bunch more people, you let some people go, and you hire fewer people. So I agree with you. I also think that the organization remains just as centralized if there's another president. And I will tell you now that the role of president demands too much of any one individual. That is the problem. That is the fundamental problem that I believe that Rich was talking to. I don't know where he is. Okay, there you are. That Rich was speaking to. It has nothing to do with any particular person. It has to do with the fact that currently this role is too overloaded. And this role needs to be decentralized into a bunch of different folks.
Aren't you contradicting yourself now? Because if you find that the role is overloaded, that means you've not let go.
No, that's the point, is I'm letting go by filling in with a bunch of VPs. That's exactly the idea. So you fill it in. So what you do is you create operational independent units. So for example, a VP of engineering would have a signed budget that was assigned by the board.
Completely familiar with all of that, but
Great.
You have enough people in your management team today to do that.
Not with the level of complexity that we've got, and I'm sorry, but that's just not the case. It just isn't, it really isn't the case.
But, okay, so I'm gonna tell you that clearly, and this is not to disparage any one individual, the finances were clearly not being managed. That should have been a red flag in February, when the first quarterly statements didn't come out, right? Okay, call me crazy,
First quarterly,
but first set of quarterly financials should have come out in February.
If I recall correctly, so I can go back and check the cameras on this.
Yeah.
But Lisa Rice transitioned in March, and she gave the presentation for the first quarterly in March.
The last time I saw quarterlies was at the last member meeting in October
Okay,
of
so-
2017.
Okay,
And
so
correct me
I-
if I'm wrong, but people didn't know what the numbers were for the private second round of the private sale. I don't think I ever found out what the actual numbers were in terms of the amount of fundraising we did
Okay,
by
so
the end of
those-
2017.
those
Anybody
weren't-
else here want to raise their hand? Because I don't know. Does anybody else know?
Okay, so I
Okay.
will, okay, then we can go.
But I don't know about anybody else here.
Fortunately, that's on film. So we
Okay,
can,
that would be great. I
Okay,
mean, it would be
good.
great to know that, but
good.
It was on film, but it wasn't clear. I've gone and looked at the film. It wasn't spoken to in anything like the detail that we have.
Okay, good.
They weren't posted on GitHub afterwards. And they were not posted on GitHub. And
Okay, so that was a misstep there, for sure. Yeah. Okay.
was it?
But so we may have a difference of opinion. I don't believe that it is a good idea to have the centralized role. And I think the best thing to do for the organization is to decentralize the role. And the way to do that is you put a bunch of autonomous characters around that role.
that doesn't sound like decentralization. That sounds like hierarchy.
No, that's kind of the whole point. So another president is clearly centralized, yes?
A non-president with a bunch of VPs is centralized.
So the important thing is that the VPs go to the board, they report to the president, but they go to the board. That's their ultimate accountability. So that is decentralized. That's sort of the whole point. It's a step-by-step. It's the kind of organizational structure that matches what our potential clients and other partners will be able to recognize without taking so it's a step towards decentralization without being too radical. That's kind of the idea. Yeah. This is what we've been crafting for the last several days as a result of it's a response to the community. So
you're still farming it?
We're still forming it right now, exactly.
Is it, is your vision in the budget for next year?
The vision has not been put into the budget because we just started formulating this just a few days
So
ago.
the idea of the vice presidents being hired?
We do
would be-
have one line item, which is the first vice president, which is Kenny.
So I'm just saying that the way I saw the budget laid out for the staff and so on and so forth, what you're saying is it'd be reorganization, so some people would be gone and other people would be vice presidents.
Yeah, if we have to hit if we have to hit those austerity measures at that time, that's the way it would work out, yes.
Well, I have to say that I actually agree that we need to have some leadership in specific areas, like in marketing and community leader, people who are accountable and whose butt are on the line, because I'm all for decentralization, but there's a lot of unaccountability and going around. But how would your role change in that scenario?
So hopefully I can step back from most of the day-to-day operations, which I think is it would be a good thing. And that's what my intention is, and why I set up the hiatus beginning in December, was that there would be a natural sort of a timeout period, so to speak, right? And I set that up from the very beginning. So there would be a timeout period, and when I return, most of the day-to-day operations would be handed off to essentially a council of VPs. Right, so that's been under contemplation for quite some time.
What about specific decisions having to do with financial negotiations?
Most of that would have to go through a team, right? So and be as with everything that has been done so far. If you go back through the board minutes, there isn't a single decision that I've made 25K or above that doesn't have a board resolution, right? So it's always been, a matter of the board record. And we would continue that, but with a larger group of people who are engaged in the general oversight and negotiation. Yeah, that's the idea. Please.
This is an easy one. You mentioned going back through the board minutes, and I've already been asked by people, if you get elected, are we going to get minutes promptly? And my response was, well, I won't be the bottleneck, but I don't understand what the bottleneck has been thus far, so I can't affirmatively promise you. So can you explain to us today, right now, what that bottleneck has been so that I can tell people honestly, yes, you will promptly get meeting minutes?
Yeah, sure. And we've talked about this before. So the minutes have to be approved before they can go out. And up to date, we have board members that are scattered all over the globe. And so being able to get all the board members to look at the minutes, review the minutes, and approve them has been a struggle at best.
You're talking about 24 hours. I think a reasonable time for minutes is 5 days, 3 days, 2 weeks.
I agree with you. However, the problem is in terms of coordination, communication. Hey, have you seen the minutes? You know, have you approved the minutes?
How is somebody able to be on the board without knowing that?
I'm only telling you what the facts on the ground are. I can't. The president doesn't have the ability to change the board members. Only the membership has the ability to change the board members.
We're doing that.
Yeah, we are, exactly. Yes.
Yeah, there's a bylaw provision that an inactive board member can be removed by the board, and there has been at least one, if not more, inactive board members. Has the board and will the board consider removing inactive board members?
So the question was, the bylaws has a provision in it to remove inactive board members. And yes, the board has been quite active in trying to address the inactivity or the highly selective activity of various board members. Yeah, so that's been uppermost in our mind. This turns out to be a somewhat nuanced problem to deal with. In particular, removing certain people from the board could signal to the larger community that there are problems. And so at this point, at this juncture, we can be a little bit more active about that kind of thing, or a little bit more proactive about that kind of thing. But over the last several months, where we've been trying to address these particular issues, it's been a little bit shaded and nuanced. I hope you understand.
Greg, quick
Yeah.
question.
Is the answer that we can expect board minutes?
I'm reading between the lines here, but I think the answer is Vlad is kind of a boss, and we have a lot of respect for him in certain venues, but he's not doing everything he should be on the board, and we're afraid, hold on a second, we're afraid that if we take him off the board, the symbolic value that his directorship represents will go away, and that will be a big problem for us. And I think if that's true, if he's not participating as a director, but the importance of his symbolic value as a simulacrum of a director is that vital to our project, that is another red flag.
Well, I believe it was there was an issue. There were issues of this kind in previous months, but at this point, I don't think that these kinds of issues are material anymore. But there were certainly material issues at an earlier point in the co-op's life. Okay.
Alan, to your point on timely minutes, the board can adopt a resolution that says minutes go out within a day or two after the meeting. They will be approved absent comment within 7 days, 5 days. It's a very simple process. So there is a way to address that issue.
And, you know, I just have to, I can't help myself, interject again. So I wanted to address something that you said, which was how, you know, this new management structure would be, it's in line with the co-op's clients. And why, like the mandate of the co-op, as I've heard you articulate it, is to manage the blockchain, right? So the idea that there are lots of clients out there that the co-op is somehow servicing, I don't understand that.
Partners.
And if we look at, right, like it's, right, I think it's clear from the conversation here that the co-op management has to show the community what they're going to do and what they're in detail quickly. The co-op can't govern a decentralized, complex piece of technology when they can't get the board minutes out, right? You know what I mean? So we can continue going on and going through the different strategies and the failures of execution, but like if there's one thing here is like if we agree, if the community agrees, if the management still agrees, that the job of the co-op is to govern the blockchain that will be produced, right? We have to understand how the co-op is going to manage themselves. And like that's massively important. And,
Yeah, no, your point is well taken, and this is exactly the next set of priorities concomitant with closing certain deals and fundraising in general. So yes, so we absolutely take your point.
Can you guys, and maybe this is a question too for Kenny, give us a ballpark for when we can expect to see some operational plans, changes, strategy? Because I don't think everything here, right, Greg, you're going through all of this, but I think there's a big piece to be said for Kenny in how being the chief operating officer and a VP that's going to be stepping in for Greg, like, what do you think and what can we expect from you?
All right. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Yeah, it's going that well, right? Yeah, okay. So, Megan, this is what I think. I think all of what you guys are saying right now is probably, pretty true, right? The consistent feedback that we are getting is very much like this, all right? I've heard it, and it's important. I get it. Some of the things Greg is saying are also true, right? There's somewhere in the between there is a path forward that I think we really need to sink our teeth into, but Greg is leaving in December. So what does that mean, okay? So my position as a VP is not exactly what Greg characterized, right? My position as a VP is just to signal to you all that while Greg is gone, I can take things for a while. What's going to happen after that, I don't know. But all I'm telling you right now is between the time Greg leaves and the time Greg comes back, I intend to make sure nothing falls apart. Okay? Hold on, please. Thank you very much. Okay. How are we going to do that? Well, we are going to make some cuts. In fact, I've already talked to some of you in this room to make those cuts, right? It's not fun, it's not easy, and there's more to come, and we're going to do that, okay? And then with the resources that we have left, we're going to get as strategic as we can. We're going to do only the things that we need to do. We're going to be as specific as we can, right? We're going to get as much input as we can. We now have items of business that have been passed. Then anything important, you all have to hear about it and comment about it before we can make that decision. I'm going to make sure that happens. We now have to do quarterly reports. I'm going to make sure that that happens. We have a monetary policy that's tight and concise. We also manage the treasury, so we're going to make sure that that gets moved into the appropriate wallets, just like the membership wants. Okay? We're not going to be making any more hires. We might scope out VP roles and see what those look like, unless we have funding. We're not going to do anything unless we have funding. We can't, right? And we're going to take it one day at a time. I'm going to say sorry when I'm not right, and I will try to get the minutes out, even if somebody won't sign them. Okay? But we can't do this if we keep this up. All right? We do need to get it out, so I appreciate it. But let's come together after this meeting and figure out what we can do, what is right, what is beautiful about what it is that brought us all together here in the first place.
That was fantastic. Thank you. And so I want to segue from what he said, but first, now you see the link, right? It is very difficult to go ahead and fill the roles that we would like to fill without funding. So there's a nice chicken and egg kind of situation here, but we will be sketching out that plan for you. But what was more important, in my opinion, there's a direct line from what Kenny said to what Steve said. Let's go back to the beginning of this project. We didn't have anything. We had an idea. That's all we had. We had ourselves and an idea. And we didn't have the capital. We didn't have a dev team. We didn't have a working code base. We didn't have 26 companies building on the working code base, and we didn't have a membership that was 1,600 members strong. We didn't have anything. All we had was hope. That's all we had. And so I want to go back to what I said at the beginning. The market has been irrational with respect to what we've delivered. It has been completely irrational. We have delivered, and we have delivered, and we have delivered. And anyone paying attention to what we have delivered recognizes the value. So I'm going to address the co-op and the market from beyond reason, since reason is not what is what's at stake here, not what's in discussion here. So the real signal of RChain has always been hope. I've talked about this before. We're seeing the end of the commercial viability of proof of work. So RChain, in my opinion, and I think anyone who does the technical analysis will see that RChain is the hope for the continuation of the blockchain markets. And I am so delighted to see the airing of all of the concerns here. I'm so happy to see the engagement, because I think RChain is the hope for a different model of governance. And I think that RChain is the hope for us having a different way of engaging each other, so that we turn around the destructive way of engaging each other. We turn it around, because right now we're in this mode of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And if we continue to engage each other in that mode, then we won't get out of this little knothole that we're in. To get out of this knothole, we have to do something different. And that something different is actually the intangible thing that lives here. And that's hope. And that's what we really have. Thank you.
And that's that we are non-existent. I agree with Greg that, I agree with Greg that the market doesn't respond accurately to the signals. If it were the case, Dogecoin would be down at 110 and we'd be at 25. Or chicken McNuggets wouldn't sell as many McNuggets because there's almost no chicken in them. So if you look at what drives behavior, it's not sanity. And there's a large market out there that we haven't even touched. Blockchain is still the sexiest word that nobody gets in the business community. If you satisfy everyone in this room, you still have only satisfied everyone in the room. You're not done. You have to go find thousands more. So my understanding of business development, I think business development started as a response to advertising and legal people when they didn't really want to have salespeople. They didn't want the dirty work of sales. So they got business development. And those people went out and met people and kind of coerced them and coaxed them and so forth. But you can do real sales. You can go out and grab people and get them and bring them in. That's what we haven't done. And yes, there might be sloppiness all over the place. This is a startup, damn it.
Sorry, Rudy, but I have to agree with you 110%. The point that I've been trying to make about our song, and I'll make it about some other projects that have come our way, which is why I slipped and said clients, is it's got to be about sales now. It cannot be about this wishy-washy, crazy ICO market that's all about selling snake oil. It's got to be about selling actual value that we really deliver. So, of all of the companies that are out there right now, show me the ones that have the MVPs. If you want to talk about what's real to me as a technologist, what's real is when I see working code delivering under load. I don't care about anything else. Show me the code. Walk me through the code. So that's what we have, and that's what we can sell right now. So you want to talk about other sales? So I've been approached by JP Morgan. They'd like to do a project. We've been approached by the Labor Party. They'd like to do a project. So yes, there are real opportunities here that we haven't explored in terms of capital. And that's because we have working code. And it's very different than the other projects. So yeah, I'm totally with you. We can, the way to turn this around is to capitalize